Click the links for Odysee, Bit Chute, join channel, become a valued member, or support channel and coffee, or the various other links. Join the Discord and the Telegram. I think Telegram is kind of the future going forward if you download it from the Telegram website itself, not from the App Store, because the App Store will filter channels. If you download it from telegram.org, it won't filter channels. It seems to be kind of the free speech frontier. Plus, there is massive file sharing that's allowed on Telegram. It's so far it seems like a really useful site. So sign up for those. So bypassing. Oh, this is Indiegogo. I went to Indiegogo and Kickstarter, and I just punched in comics. And in case you think it's like a cookie thing affecting the algorithm, I also went to Dolphin Zero and punched them in and got the same result. And a Kickstarter was not surprised with the results of a lot of low funding comics. There's a lot of comics in like the $2,000 range, which for a comic is not very good. You want something more like $20,000 to get funded. But with Indiegogo, I got to say I was surprised. This is the page. This is organic. I just punched this in, and I'm seeing either openly Comicsgate projects, or at least projects that are not, SJW type of stuff. Like, without even looking too deeply into this comic, Nightmare Theater 2, Revenge of the Horror comic, it's probably not an SJW comic. So a lot of this stuff, this is organic. Fragaboom is a guy from Comicsgate, Alterna. Then there's a bunch of other guys who were in here. So I got to say, I was who's Shane Davis? Is that in frame? Graham Nolan. So this was surprising to see from Indiegogo. This is Indiegogo punched in comics, and this came up. So I did not expect to see this. So anyway, this video is about bypassing the gatekeepers. I listened to Eric July was talking about, he's doing a comic, and he was thinking about doing it selling it via website, if I heard it right. But it doesn't matter. It's just the concept of, do comic book creators, not only Comicsgate, though the short version of this is, why doesn't Comicsgate as a whole start a sales platform? It's not rocket science. You need a payment processor, and you need something to take email lists, and that's it. It's like it's a website. It doesn't. It might have been more complicated 20 years ago, but setting up something like that today is pretty basic. You could probably do it on a tablet. So it's like, why didn't Comicsgate jump into that? I don't know. Maybe in the beginning of Comicsgate, they're kind of like, they wanted to go with something more established. They thought the discovery paid for itself, and it still might. There's no way of telling until you start doing it. But now, Comicsgate is pretty big, and Comicsgate is also bringing its audience with it. Do you make more in Discovery? Does Discovery pay for itself? There's no way to tell. But is the cost of avoiding gatekeepers, like you'd have to, if you did a Comicsgate thing, it's like you'd have to say right from the start, listen, there's no gatekeeping. It's a free speech platform. It's anything. If you say you're Comicsgate and you want to sell your thing on here, we take no responsibility for it. We're going to charge the lowest fee possible. It's just a place to bring people to showcase your platform. Everyone's welcome. But I don't know. I guess Comicsgate would be preferred. I'd say everyone's welcome for who's Comicsgate. And really anyone who just, like, if you're willing to put your project, you're like, oh, I'm not Comicsgate, but I want to sell my Comicsgate on a Comicsgate website. It's like, whatever. People are going to call you Comicsgate. Anyway, it's like, maybe 3 years ago, nobody wanted to do that. But, it's 3 years later, Comicsgate has got some name recognition. It's something to consider, somebody who's a little bit more tech savvy. Because Eric July, if I heard right, he's going to do his own website. It's like, well, okay, you got people going to one website for one comic. By now, Comicsgate could put, 50 comics in a year could go on a website. And it's just as easy to showcase 50 comics without any gatekeepers whatsoever. Because while, Indiegogo is very cool, today, it all depends who is, how they feel today. It's like they could pull the rug out from under us instantly. Where if you had your own website, it's like, something to consider. Anyway, so I was reading this book called Streaming, Sharing, and Stealing, and it deals with the future of digital entertainment in the age where it's so easy to just go sailing for content. And they're talking about, like, how do you create enough value for the customer to pay for the goods and services and not simply go download it with a VPN. And the book covers how Netflix started to change how video entertainment was sold, and then that kind of changed how it was made. It's a theory I have mentioned earlier where streaming platforms favor quantity over quality, where TV is the reverse, but still obviously video on demand is a huge selling point, a convenience for people, and so far it's turning out to be worth it for people, even if there's a lot of filler material, because streaming platforms are like, you walk into a Blockbuster and it's like they just want the walls full of videos, even if a lot of them are, grade B horror knockoffs, where TV, it's like you want the highest return on investment, so they're putting more energy into individual shows. And theoretically, TV should be better, but then you look at it and you're like, wait, why isn't it better? I don't know. The thing is, you would think competition would be good for an industry where like 95% of the narrative is controlled by 6 companies. And in the back of our minds, we think competition must be good for us getting entertainment. But then you think a little bit deeper and it hits you like, not really, because almost all mainstream entertainment is degenerate, either openly or by what it's keeping you from doing. But what I mean that is like, if you didn't have people who are glued to a TV or some kind of video screen, that's passive entertainment. Not so much. The internet's a little bit different because it's a dialogue, not a monologue, where TV is just programming your brain. If we didn't have that, we'd be reading books. We'd be going to watch Shakespeare. We'd be talking to people in person. We'd be talking to our neighbors more instead of just being stuck on our couch and these, watching what they want us to watch. The video format makes people very passive, and there's a study done that says people who watch more TV are more gullible. They hear CNN, MSNBC programming even Fox programming their brains with. It's like, is it true? Is it false? Well, it's more false than true, because they're not telling you the news, they're selling advertising space. The news is just something to sell advertising space to you. You have to think of it in terms of there are companies selling advertising space. The news is secondary. It's not the news, it's just programming so they can sell Coca-Cola and make money. The news is online. You have to go find the news where people don't have a financial interest in presenting it to you. Where there's debate, where there's an open marketplace of ideas, and the only way to find that is to go online. And it used to be YouTube, but not so much anymore. It's Telegram and Odysee and Gab and all these other sites. So I know this is a pop culture channel, so calling mainstream pop culture stupid is kind of a weird flex, but it really is. It's pretty much all mindless degeneracy designed to distract you from talking to your neighbors about anything important. Imagine if there were no movies on Netflix, you'd be playing bridge with your neighbors, discussing how the government has gotten so far off track. I think back, years ago when I was a kid, and there was TV back then, but it was different. Neighbors were more involved in each other's lives. They were doing things together, talking to each other way more often. Neighborhoods now are weird because it's like a collection of isolated people who are just vaguely live together. But it's not like it was when we were kids, because if I'm looking at the algorithmic thing, I can tell how old roughly the audience is. Like, things have changed quite rapidly. Like, a neighborhood is not a neighborhood. It's more like anymore. Back in the day, neighbors, you knew the neighborhood. Nowadays, it's like, oh yeah, just people are coming and going left and right. It's just nobody wants to be a Karen. It's like, that's how a neighborhood goes to shit, by not looking out to see what's going on. Where was I going with this? You gonna pause? My theory is the only way the government was able to screw things up so badly is because they were able to distract us with bread and circuses, where we're not talking to our neighbors and we're not able to build, what do you call it, a susurration, the soft sound of the waves, this soft, the ants coming together to team up. It's like keeping us from talking to people in real life. Like, these people play chess while, like, it's not that we're not capable of playing chess with them. It's that we don't even want to play chess. We just want to sit in our living rooms and just take the bread and circuses programming. Like, I'm thinking, like, all this kind of stuff, kind of like tinfoil hat time, all this kind of stuff kind of comes together, and it's not like it was intended to do this. Some of it is unintended consequences of all these, like, bad people coming up with ideas. Well, like, over time, bad people coming up with ideas are going to come up with bad ideas that hurt people. It's like, that's kind of where we are now. a government that's screwed up so badly. It's like, we're not talking to our neighbors about it. It's like, oh, we don't want to get doxxed on Twitter and get destroyed for saying what would be a very reasonable statement, 20 or 30 years ago about the shape of the country. It's like, just stay home and watch sports ball, bread, and circuses. So in that regard, all these distractions are evil because it might be CNN or Disney or video games. It keeps us focused on their narrative, the message that they want to provide. But it's not the truth. And no, I don't think mainstream social media is helping us fight the power. It's the same thing with the censorship over there. They present what they want us to be presented with. And let's take a look at that Twitter trending page. That's not a trending page. I think they even changed the name of it because it wasn't organically trending. It's what they want to have on the front page, which is why the front page of Twitter, the stuff gets very little interaction, because it's like, let's discuss pollution in Europe. It's like, have you seen India and China and the rest of the world? It's really deck chairs on the Titanic to focus on, the coal-fired plants in America when you've got China and India are number one. It's like, let's focus on number 3 and 4. Well, that's ridiculous. That's why Twitter, the Twitter front page is like, there's no interaction on that front page because none of it's organic, because these people are terrified of free expression. Hey, credit to Tim Pool for having Andrew I'm sure Tim is watching this video, for having Andrew Torba on last night. And then even more credit for having the Jason Miller guy from Getter, who looked like the clown, the absolute clown that he was. And then, to have the two of them on this, one night after another to show you the difference between the two of them. It's like, that's amazing. Getter, what a clown show Getter is. Just absolute clown shoes. Go on, get on Gab. Anyway, it's those are the only places you're able to have the open marketplace of ideas, is on Gab, Telegram, and Odysee. So far seems to be pretty good. It's getting away from the narrative and getting to washing off political correctness and just saying what you want to say what you think, and having those ideas sharpened by people rebutting those ideas. Everything on the mainstream is what they want us to see. The best gatekeeping is where the people don't know that they're being gatekept. Like I always say, if everything you know about an issue is coming from Hollywood, then you don't know anything. You know what some Weinstein kitty diddler wants you to know. Everything mainstream is fake and very harmful because it's bad people who are putting it together. The only way to stop mainstream globalist propaganda is to make our own entertainment, which is why comicsgate is such an interesting movement, because even the best of Hollywood is still propaganda. After you strap on the They Live glasses, it destroys 99% of Hollywood, which I know sounds jaded or sour grapes, but it's really not, because it feels refreshing, like being reborn into the religion of being as based as possible. Even a movie I would consider a perfect adventure film, Raiders of the Lost Ark, I look back at the silly ways they portrayed the Germans now as an adult. It's so ridiculous to think like, oh, as a kid, it's like they were programming us as a kid. Like, what do you mean? Everyone knows. Well, yeah, everyone knows a lot of things. It's like, that's how we get witch trials. That's how we get lynch mobs, because everyone knows. No, it's facts and evidence are for. Why have we accepted this stereotyping nonsense, this brainwashing for so long? Because it's what happens with generational brainwashing. We live in this ocean of globalist propaganda where we're scared of even considering that it might not be true. Reject degeneracy, embrace tradition, use a flamethrower. Anyway, people are getting tired of censors and gatekeepers. Adults don't need other adults telling them what ideas they may consume. People are really getting tired of cat ladies and soy boys trying to live our life for us. 300-pound idiots who spend an hour a day on Twitter are hardly the people to tell us how to live. And honestly, it's probably more than an hour a day. It's people they'll spend a weekend on social media. And you're like, what did you get out of that? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. You spent 6 hours on Saturday on Twitter. Congratulations. Ever since comicsgate came out and started using Indiegogo and Kickstarter, I wondered if those platforms were necessary. Kickstarter is larger, it's got better discovery, which means someone may find the comic from within the site itself organically. Let's take a look at Kickstarter. I punched in comics in the first page of Kickstarter. The first one, I gotta say, does look pretty solid, but there's a lot of these low-selling comics, which are, like, kind of diversity hires in terms of comics, which is why the algorithm pushes them to the front of the page. But it is larger, and ideally it should have better discovery. But, you know, theoretically, it's like, yeah, that's not going to work that way because Kickstarter is really, really woke. And I got to say, I was surprised with Indiegogo. I really did not expect them to have comicsgate stuff on the front page. That was shocking. And to counter that, you know, they're only going to promote. Kickstarter definitely has an agenda, so comicsgate is going to be out of luck if you're funding your stuff on there. Like, if you're comicsgate, you don't even bother with Kickstarter. The thing is, with either Indiegogo or Kickstarter, if you're comicsgate, you're bringing your audience from a YouTube channel and the comicsgate network. Because while Indiegogo might be a little more friendly to comicsgate right now, there's still a woke tech company in, I think, probably San Francisco. So what do you need to sell a comic? A web space and a payment processor. It's not high tech. You need something for credit cards, PayPal, or maybe other payment acceptance things. You can use Stripe and whatnot. You don't need Indiegogo or Kickstarter unless they bring more in discovery than they cost in fees. There's no way to tell until you try both methods for a few years. And, you know, several have a few hundred projects on there. In a perfect world, you could trust Indiegogo and Kickstarter to be unbiased, organic sites, but unfortunately, tech companies don't see themselves that way. They openly see themselves as gatekeepers. They're eager to push BLT, POC creators, but why? If they're underrepresented in comics, we're individuals. The individual is selling a comic. It's not a straight comic or a gay comic. It's an individual. Like, are you going to promote an Irishman because they've been more marginalized and oppressed and disenfranchised than a Swedish person? It's like, you don't know the individual story. It's ridiculous to promote entire groups of people as if they all fit within the group. Every individual is like, they're just selling comics. That's all we want you people to do. We don't need you. We don't need gatekeepers. We don't need all this kind of. If I say I'm BLT, like this kind of stuff. Oh God, it's cringe. If I say I'm BLT, my comic will be more promoted than, because I looked into Indiegogo and Kickstarter how they work a little bit. Like when you put your comic on there, you put your product on there, you can check like black women. Okay, so if I check that, or LGBT voices, all kind of stuff, if I check all those things, it's going to be promoted to the front page. It's like, how is that? That's not fair. That's not fair to people want to know that they're being treated equally. And, you know, people are getting tired of this. And to be fair, not a lot of people know about how bad things are getting, how bad this discrimination is getting. But it's insane. Which, that's our duty. Our job is to bring you the news. Okay, MSNBC. Are you saying your job is to gatekeep? Yeah, basically. Anyway, this could go on a little bit longer, but I'm going to stop here. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you guys all next episode.